Good morning. Thanks for joining me today, everybody, for devotions. So, yesterday I talked about resurrection, and I asked the question, I believe, about how you're experiencing resurrection today, and we talked a little bit about what that might mean. Today, I want to actually jump backwards in the text and talk about that story on the road to Emmaus and Jesus being revealed in the breaking of the bread because it sets up the rest of the story that we read yesterday and that we heard on Sunday. And I think we have to acknowledge that. So I'm going to read that and then invite you to spend a little time with yourself, actually. Now, on that same day, this is the day Jesus appeared to the women, resurrection. Now, on that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" He asked them what things. They replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it's now the third day since these things took place. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him." Then he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on, but they argued with him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it's almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he's appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road, and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread. While they were talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." And I'm going to stop there. What I was thinking about actually was they can't recognize Jesus and they're walking along, and then he's revealed in the breaking of the bread. And I mentioned it on Sunday too, but that's kind of an astounding story to me because when I think about the fact that Jesus is making this effort to show them his scars as a sign that he's alive, he shows them his hands and his feet. You didn't see people with crucifixion scars walking around. I mean, you can find lots of people that have scars of a hip replacement or a knee replacement, right? Or even a car accident, or even my own scars and injuries that I've had. You can find other people with those injuries and say, "Oh, I know what happened to you." But you didn't run into people with scars from crucifixion because it always killed you. You always died from that. You didn't get out of that where there was a body walking around alive, a person like, "Hey, look what happened to me." And I just think that's really interesting that as he broke that bread and he went, blessed it, and said, "Here," they had to have seen his hands and realized, or at least thought, "Oh," and made a connection. And I think that's a beautiful part of the story because they go back and tell the other disciples that what happened. He was revealed in the breaking of the bread, and we don't even know what that means. We're not sure what they're talking about, or at least I've never read anything about what they're talking about other than that he broke bread, and that's something that we associate with communion and and all of that. But just think about it for a minute, that our bodies and lives tell this unique story, and sometimes I don't think we spend enough time with our own stories, paying attention, looking at our journey, acknowledging the pains and the burdens that have been put on us and that we bear and that we learn from and that we suffer in and that lead us to become who we are. And that story is told in our scars and in worry lines and wrinkle lines and in our hearts too, in the unique ways that we're each broken and wounded in the world. So today I just invite you to spend some time with yourself and tell your story, but not just tell it in tell it with to yourself with grace and with mercy and with kindness, because life is hard. And that's why Jesus came and entered and came back to these people and said, his disciples and friends, and said, peace be with you, because Christ enters our stories and our lives as you are, with love and grace, partly so you can see how God sees you, but partly also so you can see how you get to treat yourself and love yourself and be kind to yourself. I hope you have a blessed day today. May you be kind and gracious to those around you, and especially may you be kind and gracious to yourself.